Hello and welcome to our coverage today for Starship Flight 12. It's hard to believe we're here. It's been a crazy road getting to 12. It's hard to believe we are at Flight 12. I'm Frank with Launch Heaven, and today joined by John. They're up above me.
How's it going, everyone?
And
Welcome.
just a quick note before we get started: the T0 clock that we've got here is a little off. The launch has pushed, I believe, half an hour into the window right now.
Yep, 30 minutes. We were
Um,
originally supposed to go at what was it, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, and we pushed back to 6 p.m. Central Time now. So we're working on getting our countdown clock at the top of the screen updated, but that'll hopefully be resolved here in a little bit. But just know that our countdown clock is gonna be about 30 minutes off because of the push.
yep, up. In fact, I think we have just got it updated there. Perfect. And as a reminder as well, today, even though we're 30 minutes into it, this is a 90-minute launch window. SpaceX still has a full hour ahead to work with in case they need it. We'll see. We'll see how they run the clock down. They, as far as I know, they are kind of fighting the weather. The the weather currently, last report was sitting at about 55% go. And I've heard from the team out there who are bringing us these awesome live views that during remote set and earlier today it was raining out there. So we are keeping our fingers crossed, thinking clear sky thoughts.
Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping the timelines have been kind of rough on my end. I'm hoping that we'll be able to see it launch today because I may not be able to watch it launch if it gets pushed back to tomorrow or sometime next week. So that'll be unfortunate if I miss it. But regardless of if I'm here or not, we're going to have really good coverage of the entire event, no matter what day it happens. If it pushes in next week, if it happens tomorrow, which I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow because of the Memorial Day weekend here, but we're hoping that it's going to go today. Like Frank was saying, we got a 90-minute launch window. We're looking at like a 55% weather probability. As long as we can get like that perfect second in the launch window where they can get the weather clear, we should be able to get this thing off the pad. And also assuming that the vehicle itself is healthy and stuff while it sits there on the pad, which it seems like here in the recent weeks, everything with the test campaign has been going really smoothly. The wet dress rehearsal last week went off without a hitch, and they had another slight sort of partial wet dress rehearsal test they did earlier this week before the launch as well. And we didn't hear anything about that, about what it was or what they were trying to achieve with it, but it seems like everything went well because we're moving forwards with launch today. So fingers crossed that everything's going to go well today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, we've seen a huge amount of testing, a really kind of crazy amount of deluge testing this week. I mean, they've been doing like multiple tests a day. We know that thanks to the documentary SpaceX put out, the ground systems during the static fire campaign um, were kind of an on and off issue. So we are hoping that they've got that evened out. It looks like we are checking out a helicopter right now.
Yeah, I think that's the SpaceX helicopter. I think they bought like a Coast Guard helicopter or formerly Coast Guard helicopter, and they kind of use it to scope out the area before launch. Or that could be the actual Coast Guard as well, because I know the actual Coast Guard I think kind of scopes the area prior to launches, make sure the entire restricted area, the TFR and everything, there's no people running around in there, no other aircraft in the region, no boats in the region, because those things can mess up the launch just as much as a vehicle issue can mess up the launch, or weather can mess up the launch. So
Oh yeah.
anyone that's out there in the Starbase area right now, keep your boats out of the restricted zone, please, so we can see this thing fly today.
Yeah, no wayward boats, no wayward planes, please. I'm looking at a ADS-B map, and I'm pretty sure that is SpaceX's helicopter. And like you said, no wayward boats, no wayward planes. We'd like the range to stay green, and most importantly of all, we want to make sure everyone stays safe.
Yep, absolutely.
This vehicle, when it's fully fueled, has an enormous amount of energy in it. That there's those restrictions, the airspace restrictions, maritime restrictions, all of those closures are there for good reason to keep people safe.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with the vehicle today. We're obviously hoping, we're cheering on SpaceX today, hoping that this vehicle is going to work completely 100% successful as intended. There's a lot of really cool things. There are going to be a lot of milestones to achieve on this flight. And obviously, with the Artemis program and the lunar missions coming up here in the next couple of years, I think there's a lot kind of resting on the shoulders of Flight 12 today, hoping that they can get through a lot of their milestones they've been trying to achieve, so we can see this see this vehicle get to orbit here in the next couple of months, and see the progress continue on the human landing system for Starship as well. But human landing system it can't work without having Starship itself operational as well, because we need those tankers to refuel the human landing system up in orbit before it can go out to the moon. So a lot resting on the shoulders today. I'm hoping we don't have any catastrophic V2 like failures today. Starship V2, that entire campaign was just kind of a nightmare. I'm sure SpaceX was not too happy with how the V2 campaign went either. And so the internals of this vehicle are essentially 100% brand new. They went through and did a total redesign internal. Like on the outside, the vehicle looks pretty similar to every other Starship we've seen, but on the inside, they've redone a lot of stuff on this vehicle to hopefully make it work this time and not have any weird fires that break out on the vehicle or anything else that we may have seen in the past.
Yeah, and a lot of this is also reflected by the test objectives today. Again, it is important to remember that this is a flight test. We are hoping for a total mission success that would allow for the possibility of a ship orbit entry and a ship recovery, a ship catch on the next flight, but that hinges entirely upon this flight going smoothly. This is the first flight of both a new ship and a new booster, which is super, super exciting to see. But it also brings a little uncertainty, because the booster, especially through, as you mentioned, the ill-fated V2 ship, the booster was kind of the big reliable part that worked consistently. So, got to make sure to keep an eye on that. This is also going to be the first time that Raptor 3 is flying. We know SpaceX has done really extensive testing, but and you work to test like you fly. However, there's always going to be a few differences when the engines are on a live vehicle. So we are excited to see how those perform. They are going to be doing a in-orbit, an in-space relight test again, just like with the V2 ships. And the skirt of the booster looks a little bit different, too. Raptor 3, compared to Raptor 2, has been kind of like ruggedized, I guess you could say. They've simplified a lot of the exterior and made it a lot more resilient to heat and to the different forces of flight and entry. Because the big heat shield that was around the aft of the booster on those engines is mostly gone now, which, if they can get away with it, is great, because the more non-propellant, non-propulsion weight that you can strip from your vehicle, the higher performance, the higher efficiency, and the more payload you can get to a higher orbit. So we're really excited to see how those perform. Even just beyond the V2 test campaign, it has not necessarily been the smoothest road to the pad for this flight. This is Booster 19, not the originally planned Booster 18, because unfortunately the first V3 ship, rest in peace. I don't know if I would quite say that it exploded, but it popped. It had a COPV, one of those nitrogen pressurant tanks that are inside the booster to help backfill the propellant tanks as propellant drains out to maintain a constant pressure. One of those exploded inside the tank and made the whole fuel tank just kind of pop open like a balloon, which was not what we want to see. But I wouldn't say, but it wasn't quite like Ship 36.
Ship 36 is that was on a whole other level.
Yeah, and aside from just the booster, which does look a little bit different, we've got that new hot staging ring as well, which to me it gives kind of Soyuz vibes, because the Soyuz has that like truss section inner stage, because they do hot staging. And I think even the Proton as well. It kind of almost gives a slightly Soviet vibe, which is
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's neat.
all of the Soviet and Russian rockets have all kind of utilized the hot staging method. I mean, even the N1 rocket had that same, their moon rocket back in the 60s had that same kind of truss section where they were trying to hot stage the vehicle. And I'm sure Elon and the SpaceX engineer team probably took a lot of inspiration from the both the Soviet and the Russian rockets because I mean, originally when SpaceX was trying to be founded, Elon was trying to buy rockets from Russia to put a payload up into orbit. So I'm not sure how much he still follows along with their space program, how much of a fan he is of their space program still, but I'm sure there was some inspiration taken from them for this hot stage ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a mass perspective, from an efficiency perspective, it makes that design makes the most sense if you can get away with it and you have the strength. Thinking about the Russian space program, I wouldn't be shocked if Elon maybe has a little chip on his shoulder after the. I was just reminded yesterday of former Roscosmos head Dmitry Rogozin, his comments calling Crew Dragon trampoline. Which is that's an old school deep cut reference right there. But it's not just the booster that's new. The ship is going to look a little bit different. The fins are in a slightly different place, but the biggest change I think is, well, it's also longer, holds more propellant. But I think the most visible change is going to be that there's a lot more tiles on the back of the ship compared with just the heat shield that we've come to know.
Yeah, they've changed. I mean, I'm not sure. So, I guess just starting out, there's going to be a lot more views that we're hoping to see today. SpaceX has said there's like 50 plus cameras on board the vehicle today, which is like way more cameras than I think we've ever had on a Starship vehicle before. So, I'm hoping we kind of get spoiled with those views, all the other views, because they do have the Starlink terminals on board the ship, which is going to be beaming down the HD video feeds throughout the entire duration of the flight. So hopefully we can start seeing a lot of those new views wherever they have those 50 cameras hidden at. Two of those cameras are going to be on board. So I did see a comment up on the screen here a second ago. Someone was asking if Triple T was going to be on the rocket. Unfortunately, Triple T will not be on there, but we do have a payload, which is the form of 22 Starlink kind of simulator satellites. And by simulator, I mean they're not actual operational Starlink satellites. They're just kind of mass simulators there that are in the place of where the Starlink satellites will be at when Starship starts launching operational Starlink missions. And so a lot of upgrades have gone into this V3 vehicle. Obviously, one of those upgrades are the PEZ dispenser that we saw utilized on both flights 10 and 11. We saw the Starlink satellites get deployed. The Starlink dummy satellites get deployed through that PEZ dispenser. SpaceX says that the new design for the PEZ dispenser is significantly faster than the last version. So they've loaded way more satellites on board for Flight 12 here, and we're hoping to see them just kind of start getting like spit out super fast when they get into that payload deploy phase of the flight. But along with those Starlink satellites, there are two cameras that are actually on board those Starlink simulators where we're going to get the first ever kind of third-person view of Starship in space, which, if those cameras work upon deployment, is going to be probably the most insane view I've ever seen of a rocket. I think any of us have ever seen of a rocket. They're utilizing those cameras to kind of inspect the heat shield on the belly of Starship as the satellites drift away from the vehicle. But just a third-person view in general, whether we see the heat shield or the shiny side of Starship, whatever we see as Starship up in space, it's going to be an amazing view from those two cameras on board.
And I think this is, in a lot of ways, that reminds me a lot of the shuttle. Because the last time we will have seen a ship do a maneuver like this, or a vehicle, was when the space shuttle was still flying and when it would visit the ISS. I don't have a space shuttle, but I do have a little mini Starship here. And I know you have one too.
I've got mine as well, yeah.
When the shuttle would visit the ISS, it would do an end-over-end flip like this to allow the astronauts on board the station to take super high-res imagery of the heat shield, looking for any potential damage to the tiles, to the leading edges of the wings, to the nose of the vehicle. And that was done following the loss of Columbia to just make extra sure that the shuttle was going to be in good shape to re-enter the atmosphere. And I'm really really excited to see this kind of third person. I don't know if they'll do like a barbecue roll or if they'll do like an end over end. We don't know what the maneuver is going to be exactly, but we do know that they are going to be doing some sort of flip maneuver to let those Starlink satellites with the cameras on them get a full view of the heat shield. And that's in line with the test objectives as well, because this vehicle is flying again, kind of like some of the last couple flights, flying some interesting and unusual test tiles. Some of the tiles are painted white. Some of the tiles are those kind of metallic, possibly actively cooled tiles that we saw make the whole like heat shield turn orange on flight 10 and 11. It's entirely possible that we may see some weird kind of colors getting spread across the heat shield from just the metal getting vaporized and depositing on the heat shield. It is possible, given that there are test tiles and they're still studying what could happen during entry of if there were damaged or missing tiles in certain areas. It is possible there could be, call it some spicy bits. There could be like some hot spots on the heat shield. We're hoping for no burn throughs, but this is a test, and before anyone flies on this, it is going to be important to make sure that that's all understood. And we've got a comment here from Mike. Will Mr. Beast be flying on it? No, Mr. Beast will not be flying on it. I'm sure if he could, he would, but I think it's going to be a little while until humans are flying on Starship. But again, as mentioned, there are those 22 test satellites with the 2 that have cameras on them. And when will it take off? If you look up at the top of the screen here, we are currently tracking a T0 in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. That's when we are hoping it will take off. Just from the weather has been kind of an issue, sitting at about 55% chance of go. However, from what I'm seeing from the live cameras, the weather seems to visibly be improving. But when we get down to the tail end of the count, and I'll mention this again when we get there, don't be shocked if they kind of pause the countdown at T-minus 40 seconds. That's kind of just a last stable hold point where if something's not right, if the weather isn't quite there, if the vehicle needs a minute to look at a technical thing, they can kind of hit pause on the countdown and hold at 40 seconds without having to run the clock back. And then from there, once they're ready, they can release it, run that last 40 seconds, and the vehicle can launch.
Yep, and hopefully we will see it clear that pad today. I don't know if SpaceX has started their stream yet. It doesn't look like they have. They said they were going to start the stream, what was it, 30 minutes before liftoff? 45 minutes before liftoff?
Yeah, I believe it was 45 minutes out. So we would still be expecting about half an hour until SpaceX goes live.
Yeah,
barring another
looking
update.
At their stream on X right now, it says they're expected to go live at 6:13. So hopefully here in the next what would that be, about next half hour or so, when SpaceX goes live, we'll be able to start getting more information from their end, because they're obviously direct connection to mission control, and they'll start giving us live updates on the status of the vehicle and the status of the countdown and everything. So right now, we're just kind of watching. The feed you've got visible right now is coming from our videographer, Joaquin, who is down there in Starbase right now, coming from the Raptor Roost, which is about 3 miles away from the launch site. Absolutely beautiful view. That's about as close as you can get to this rocket legally during launch. So super, super cool view that he's got from Raptor Roost down there in Starbase.
That is so cool. That's so close to such an enormous vehicle. Truly, for any launch, at least in the United States or like any European launch site, that is about as close as you can get. The NASA press site that's about the same distance as the NASA press site from 39A and 39B. And that's also about as close as the closest publicly accessible viewing locations out at Vandenberg Space Force Base are as well. And I'll tell you, being that close to a vehicle that powerful is crazy. And if any of you watched our Falcon Heavy stream, you guys might remember that insane hole in the clouds and all that. Well, that was Joaquin. So Joaquin is an absolute beast with the camera. So excited to see the views that he's going to be bringing us today.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some really good views of Starship today. Joaquin's going to be able to track that all the way up. And unfortunately, like we were saying earlier, the booster will not be returning to the launch site just because it's an all-new booster. I know we've seen the previous version of the booster that we saw fly was kind of, it was like originally like the version 1 booster, and then they re-nicknamed it to version 2. And now it's version 3 of the booster, even though the booster is only, this is technically the second big iteration of the booster we've seen. But V3 of the booster, version 2 was extremely reliable. I think it was the most reliable part of the Starship vehicle since Flight 3, when we finally saw it when they started getting the kinks worked out in the vehicle. Because I know in those first couple of flights, Super Heavy had some engine issues where they couldn't get the engines to relight and stuff during like the big flip maneuver and stuff for the boost spec burn to come back to launch site. They got all that sorted out. I mean, it was running so reliably, getting all those engines to light up for every single boost spec, every single engine relight for the landing burn. It was operating. To me, it felt like it was almost as routine as a Falcon 9 booster coming back home. So I'm hoping we can see that same level of reliability with the first flight of V3, which obviously first flight of a brand new booster. Hopefully that reliability is still there, but anything could happen today. So we're just going to have to keep our eyes out and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed for a smooth flight. Again, this is because it's the first flight of the V3 booster, the first flight of the V3 Raptors as well. There are enough unknowns that SpaceX is going to err on the side of caution. It's going to be similar to some of the V2 flights where they're still going to simulate the landing. The booster is still going to go through its whole landing procedure. It is going to cut the engines down to just a few for landing, down select, I think, to either 1 or 2 engines right at the end. And it's going to do a kind of an imaginary catch over the Gulf, where it'll still do the same maneuver as if there was a tower there, but it'll just be over the ocean. Then they'll cut the engines, it'll fall down into the Gulf, and it should make a pretty nice fireball as we see it have its Viking funeral.
Yep. Booster 19 will unfortunately meet its demise on this flight. Regardless of what happens, Booster 19 is going to die no matter what, unfortunately. And I think Ship 39 here will also meet the same fate after its hopeful splashdown in the Indian Ocean later today. But I was going somewhere with this. I was going to say, yeah, so you mentioned that it's going to go through the same paces as if there was a tower there for the landing burn, even though it's over the Gulf of Mexico. And it basically, like, the computer doesn't know there's not a tower there. SpaceX tells the computers on the avionics on board the vehicle that this is where your landing point's at. There's a tower right here. You need to land in this spot so you can be caught by this tower. And so even though there's not something there, the avionics are 100% convinced that there's a tower right there. So if we have any, because I know in some past flights there's been some buoys they put out there in the Gulf to kind of get that third-person view of the booster coming down for landing. Obviously, we'll hopefully have the onboard cameras as well, but you might notice the booster as it comes down. It's going to kind of slow itself down. It'll hover briefly. You might see it do a little bit of a side-to-side motion as if it's kind of guiding itself into something. That's literally the booster. It thinks it's guiding itself into the chopsticks on the tower. And I've seen that. You've seen that on the past flights as well. And we're going to see the same thing with the ship today, where during the reentry phase through the atmosphere, I'm going to get my visual demonstrator out here. You're going to see the ship do a lot of really sharp banking from left to right. And that is all a part of the landing sequence for the ship, guiding itself back to what it thinks is going to be Starbase. So all the maneuvers you're going to see it make during reentry is the exact same maneuvers it will have to make as it passes over South Padre Island and Starbase to come back in for a catch over the tower. And it's going to make all the maneuvers as if there was a tower right there for it to be caught inside of. So all kinds of really cool stuff that we're going to see today.
Yeah, and this is, it's interesting. The more and more you look at this flight, the more V3 Starship and the flight profile are just kind of starting to remind me of the shuttle. Because for those who were around to remember it, one of the hallmarks of a shuttle entry was what they called the roll reversals, or S-turns, where it would go into a series of banks to help dissipate energy and even out the heating as it was making its entry over the United States. And for the moment, what we've seen from Starship is a pretty much just a like belly first entry and into the belly flop. So now we're going to start to see it do a little more rolling. And one of the things that has continued to blow me away about Starship is just how much lift and how far this thing is able to glide. Because you look at it and it looks like it shouldn't be able to fly. And I'll never forget back in the hop test days, I think it was ship 8, during the high altitude hops. The first one where they, pitched over, got flat, and started doing the belly flop. And, you see it's coming down flat, and then you see it lean a little bit, and you could clear as day see it cross-ranging, gliding. And it just blew my mind how stable it was, and that, this thing that kind of looks like a brick almost is like actually able to fly. And if you've ever played Kerbal, you know that body lift is a pretty significant factor. The shuttle is a good example as well. It wasn't exactly an aerodynamic vehicle, but if you have a big enough surface and you get enough air on it, you can get a considerable amount of lift.
Yeah, and I think that's literally just the entire point of Starship. They're just trying to get this thing to have as much cross range as possible for their control. You look at the flaps on the vehicle. I mean, like you said, it doesn't look like this thing should be able to fly in any means at all. But those flaps are able to perfectly guide that thing, keep its orientation correct, and steer it. It's able to get the whole vehicle to turn onto its side just about. And then bring it back up vertical again when they need to. So it's amazing how much control, which big enough surface area, fast enough speeds, I think anything could fly. You can make a physical brick, have lift if you threw it fast enough. And so
I think that was the whole principle behind the F4 Phantom.
That was probably was, yeah. Those little wings in the F4 Phantom, you get it to go fast enough, it'll fly. But it's kind of the same concept as Starship, where it's coming in at 26,000 miles per hour, or it's kilometers an hour. It's the 26,000 kilometers an hour, 17,000 miles per hour. Got my metric system and my imperial mixed up there, but coming in at these extreme speeds, almost like 20 times the speed of sound. Anything's possible when you got those speeds at play.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When you start getting up into orbital velocity, especially, conventional aerodynamics, all that kind of stuff starts to get real weird. It's a part of why even a capsule like Orion or Crew Dragon is able to get lift and you can even do things like skip reentries. Hypersonic aerodynamics it's a very strange, very challenging regime to operate in, and again, that's one of the things that has impressed me so much. Is that Starship has had so much control during this extremely punishing flight regime. They're able to keep it like on the flights where it hasn't kind of had some burn throughs and has been able to maintain attitude control. That it has been really solid through there.
Yeah, no, those have been. I think Flight 4 is probably the best example of that, where they made it. That was like the first flight that I think actually kind of made it to a stable reentry. Flight 3 made it to that reentry regime, but it was tumbling out of control during that regime, or during that time period. And so seeing Flight 4, it comes in stable. It's got all of its attitude control. And then those flaps burn through, and you see literally just these huge chunks of metal get ripped off these flaps. And it doesn't look like that thing should be remaining stable at all. But that ship is maintaining its orientation the entire time. And even when it gets into that final phase of flight, where it's in the belly flop coming straight down, back down to the ground, it was still 100% stable, maybe a little bit nose forward on that, because there's a lot of air going through those flaps. They're not doing as much as they should, but it was still amazing to see how much control the ship still had, even through those, even when they have those burn throughs. And I mean, we've seen instances where tiles have come off the ship and they've had burn throughs on stuff, and this ship is literally built like a tank. SpaceX has built a rocket tank, and it seems like no matter what they put this thing through, it's going to survive no matter what, um, unless you have a fire break out in the engine bay. But other than that, so far that the fire in the engine bay is the only thing that can kill the ship. So, but um, it really just kind of adds to that peace of mind, the reliability of the ship once they do start going orbital and people are flying on it. Even if something in the future does go wrong where they lose some tiles in the belly, they should still be able to get the ship back home in one piece and get the people on board home as well. So just crazy to see the engineering that's went into this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, just as a heads up for everyone, SpaceX has pushed the countdown back by another half hour. That still leaves, if I'm not mistaken, that still leaves about half an hour in the window. So we're not at the end of that window yet, but it is, SpaceX is currently targeting 6:30 p.m. Central Time for the new T0. And Morgan, I couldn't agree more. Joaquin, he is totally insane. The work he does is unbelievable. We're beyond blessed to have him. Incredibly lucky to have his live feed here today. For any of you who haven't seen it, go check out, when this is over, go check out our coverage for Falcon Heavy and be able to see the super, super clean track that he was able to get and see Falcon Heavy just doing that, punching that crazy hole in the clouds, which is like, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in any launch, period. Yeah, they keep pushing it back. Unfortunately, weather is still proving to be a bit difficult. Visually, it does still seem to be heading in a good direction, but that doesn't tell us about things like electric fields, and there may be more bands of rain coming through. We also don't know about the vehicle and ground systems. Unfortunately, we just kind of have to work with what SpaceX gives us and, hope for the best.
Yep, and SpaceX, I don't think they've given any type of weather update recently, but last night when they officially kind of announced, like, hey, we're going tomorrow, they gave us a 55% probability for weather, which it's better than a 50% chance. It's like we're kind of leaning more in the favorable direction, but barely. And so we've just kind of been sitting here all day hoping that the weather, even though visually it looks really good out there, like Frank was saying, there could be any other factors in play, whether it be incoming storms in the area, if there's wind at higher altitudes that maybe are a concern for the vehicle. And so just a lot of factors that SpaceX has to take into account before they let this thing leave the pad. So we're going to continue to monitor the situation and see how it goes.
Absolutely. SpaceX wants to give this vehicle the absolute best chance it can at having a successful flight. If you were to send it in conditions where it wouldn't survive, you wouldn't get good data. It wouldn't be, a reasonable test, and could also potentially put people at risk. They want to make sure that everything is done correctly. What are the chances of it crashing? We are hoping, we're hoping for a successful flight today. That's what we want to see.
we want everything to be 100% successful, but like we were saying before, brand new vehicle, a lot of unknowns with it, so anything is possible today. But we've got our fingers crossed, and we're hoping that this is a 100% successful flight. And SpaceX, I mean, the amounts of data that SpaceX has collected from the V2 campaign and also just the original V1 ship, all the stuff they put it through, just huge amounts of data and all kinds of things that they've been able to learn from those past versions of Starship that they've implemented that now into the V3 ship. And so we're hoping that we're going to see this thing just kind of go through this as if it's nothing, and it's just your average. It's your average Thursday today, just flying a Starship,
Yeah, and I mean, 12 flights in. It's hard to believe that we're already at 12 flights. There have been periods where this program has started to feel maybe not quite as routine as Falcon, but it has started to feel very routine. They have an established launch flow. We've come to know the different milestones that the vehicle goes through in fueling, in flight. We've gotten to know that really well. So what are the chances of it launching? Right now the weather is as far as we know, the weather is still 55% go. That's kind of a coin flip. But as a reminder, they only need the weather to be green for just a few moments. I'll reference back when I was out at the Cape for Crew 11, where it, not going to use the word, but it didn't go on the first attempt because there was one single isolated cloud over 39B dumping rain, and everything else was perfect and clear. And on the next attempt, it was just clouds all surrounding, and there was this perfect little channel through everything right over 39A. And about 90 seconds after liftoff, weather went red across the board, but they only needed it to be green just to get through a couple different points where they check the weather, make sure they're good to go. And, the weather was okay at that moment of liftoff. And even though it looked pretty bad, they managed to get off the ground and have a safe flight.
And I think that's kind of what we're hoping for today, is just that 1 second where the weather can hold off, where we can get this thing off the pad. So SpaceX will take anything they can get today, I'm sure. But obviously, like you were saying, Frank, we want this vehicle to have the best possibility of success as possible. And so SpaceX is, I think that with at least the V3 campaign, since you had the, well, I'm trying to remember, was Ship 36, was that a V2 ship or was that a V3 ship?
I believe Ship 36 was a V2 ship.
Okay,
if I'm
so
not mistaken.
39 is the first V3. But with Booster 18 was the first V3 booster, and we had the incident that happened on it with the COPV inside the booster kind of rupturing and blowing a huge hole on the side of it, where that booster was no longer usable anymore. And so we're on Booster 19 now. That will be supporting today's flight. But kind of what I'm getting at here is I think SpaceX has, at the rate they've been moving with the Starship program, I think they've kind of realized they need to kind of step it back a notch and slow down a little bit, go back and look at things and make sure they've combed over everything with they've went over everything with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that this thing is 100% ready to launch. And so I think they're going to take the same level of precautions they've taken with the testing campaign with weather and everything else for this vehicle to make sure that it's going to have like the utmost 99.9% chance of success today, because as I was saying earlier, a lot is resting on the shoulders of this first V3 flight, because we want to see Starship succeed and we want to see the program start to progress forwards. And if we start seeing failures from the vehicle early on in flight, or even on the pad or something like that, hopefully we don't see anything like that happen on the pad, because that would be devastating. But we don't want to see any failures early on in the flight, because that's not going to give SpaceX the data they want to continue progressing and moving forward with the Starship program. So we're hoping that everything is going to be just, if it lifts off today, we want everything to be as flawless as possible, go off without a hitch, so that way SpaceX can get as much data as possible and they can learn as much as possible for Flight 13 coming up here in the next couple of months.
Absolutely. SpaceX GT, that is worst case scenario. We are hoping for, and if there is a significant failure, we are hoping for basically anything but that, as long as it keeps people safe. Yeah, that would be absolute worst case scenario. And Mike, will it go out of orbit? The question should really be, will it go into orbit? Because this flight, like all of the previous Starship test flights, is going to be suborbital. They get very, very close to orbit, but the trajectory would still have it splashing down, even if once they cut the engines off on the ship, if nothing else happens and they lose control of it or anything like that happens, or if they just let it sit there and did nothing, it would still re-enter the atmosphere and come to a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And that's done just for safety, because again, this is a flight test. We have seen issues controlling the ship, particularly the V2 ship, in the past in orbit, and they want to make sure that just in case something happens, it will not be stuck in orbit. If they put this all the way up in orbit and didn't have a way to control it, that would be the largest piece of space debris since Skylab, and they would basically have no way to tell when and where it would come down on the Earth, because it would come down, it would enter, and given that it has a heat shield and that it's made out of steel that has shown itself, kind of like John said, to be just unbelievably resilient to the blistering plasma of reentry, the last thing you want is like over 1,000 tons of molten starship coming down in a populated area. So just to help keep everyone safe, they do keep it suborbital. However, if this flight goes well, if everything goes off without a hitch, the next flight, Flight 13, lucky number 13, would be expected to be the first Starship to successfully make orbit, and then they would be attempting a ship recovery, trying to bring it back to Starbase and catch it.
See, Mike also asked, what camera setup are you using during the launches? I believe the camera that Joaquin is using right here. So he is our videographer, one of our primary videographers here for Launch Heaven. He's down there in Starbase right now. That's the feed you're looking at right now, is a live feed provided by our videographer, Joaquin. And I believe the setup he's got going on is a Canon EOS R7. It's a nice mirrorless camera. And I'm not sure what lens he has paired with it. I assume it's probably like a 100 to 500 or something along those lines. Maybe something a little bit bigger, like an 800 millimeter that Canon offers for those cameras as well. But he's got a really nice telephoto on the front of that he's using for his setup down there. And this is his feed that's coming back to us here for the stream is being powered by a Starlink satellite down there. And I saw some other questions earlier asking kind of like, why is the quality kind of low? And a lot of that comes down to just kind of limited bandwidth, because there's a lot of people down there in Starbase right now trying to watch that rocket, and they're all using Starlink at the same time. So all these little Starlink dishes are trying to fight for the bandwidth at the same time right next to each other. And that's kind of probably what's limiting the resolution of his feed coming back to us.
And, in a way, you can almost look at these as Starship launches as kind of a localized like network stress test for Starlink. Because I would imagine that this has got to be one of the highest density and highest traffic areas for Starlink that has happened in the entire time that Starlink has been flying and providing data. And, one of the hopes with Starship is that once it gets operational, they will be able to start putting up the full-sized V2 or maybe even move to a V3 satellite that will continue increasing the network bandwidth and the connectivity to help minimize these data crunches. Because if for anyone out there, if you've ever been to a launch or you ever go to a launch, one of the things you might notice is that when you get, especially down to like the last 10 minutes, if you've got cellular data, if you've got anything like that, your ability to get data goes down to about zero, because everybody is on their phone trying to look at the live stream, trying to get the countdown, trying to like stream it on TikTok or Instagram Live. And so it gets super, super hard fighting for bandwidth. That's one of the nice things about the Kennedy Space Center press site is there is some dedicated connectivity there. Out here at Starbase, it's kind of, everyone's pretty much on their own.
Yeah, that entire region down there around Starbase is just kind of it. So you've got the SpaceX facility, and then everywhere around it is protected land that's like a wildlife refuge down there. And SpaceX is kind of built in an area that's like inside the refuge, and then everywhere around them is protected land. And so you're not really able to build infrastructure for cell towers and everything out there because of it being protected land. And so you get down there. SpaceX is like right next to the border of Mexico as well, right there on the Rio Grande River. And so you might connect to the international cell towers there on the other side of the river in Mexico. You might have no connectivity. It's just really hit or miss down there just because of kind of the area they have this facility built in. And SpaceX is just focused on launching the rocket. They're not going to try and go out of their way to get cell towers built up for the people around there. So
yes, yeah, they do have connectivity, and they have their own Starlink and I would assume infrastructure out there, but Unfortunately, SpaceX has not set up any kind of a press site, and they don't have like a dedicated high bandwidth Starlink setup for press and stream guys to use, which would be cool to have. But for the moment, we work with what we get.
Yeah, and
No, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, sorry, I was just saying that. And what we get is a Starlink mini satellite dish that's going to be sit up there next to Joaquin's camera, and hopefully we continue getting some good. Hopefully we continue getting some good bandwidth there, so that way when this, hopefully, when if this thing launches here in the next hour and 16 minutes, we get some really good tracking shots. And obviously SpaceX will have their stream going at the same time, so we'll get some good views from the SpaceX stream themselves as well. But we really want to get our own good video footage of the launch as well on our end for Launch Heaven. So we'll see what happens here.
I think, as a rule of thumb, the more rocket cameras is always going to be a good thing. The more cameras we can bring, the more unique views we can bring you. In addition to the cameras that SpaceX has, I think it makes for always makes for a better time. And of course, once it is in space, SpaceX has something like, I think you mentioned, like 50 or more cameras across this vehicle. So we should be seeing some incredible views while it's on its suborbital cruise, and hopefully even see a few new cameras that maybe we haven't seen in the past. Justin, thank you for the kind words. We are all here because we love what we do. We love this. It is just, it's awesome to be able to get to do this, to get to see these live views. And Mike, I think I'll mirror what a lot of people will say. For people who are interested in space and want to follow this stuff, just get out there and do it. Get out there, make what you can, take pictures, write articles, do what you love to do, and just keep doing it, and you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what happened there. My webcam just populated your box there on the stream as well. There's two of me now. Oh, we're back now. Okay, cool.
All right, cool. There we are.
But
yeah, I can imagine, Klon, it must be nice having U.S. launch actually be at like a reasonable hour for Australia. I mirror your sympathies with like the days when I had the time to be able to be following like Soyuz crew launches and everything. When Soyuz MS-10 had their in-flight abort, I think it was something like 4 a.m. for me. So I was like not sure, is something weird actually happening, or am I just like so exhausted that I'm losing it?
yeah, and I mean I can we had just for the Falcon Heavy launch, we had Aussie Knot on the stream hosting alongside you, and he's over in Australia as well. So just trying to figure out his availability, and when I want to say they're almost like 12 hours ahead of us in their time zone, maybe a little bit even further than that. I can't remember their exact, like how many hours ahead they are in Australia, but working with his time zone just to find his availability for Falcon Heavy. And I'm hoping he didn't have to stay up super late for that. Hopefully that didn't interfere with anything, but I definitely sit.
I think it was past midnight for him. I think it was getting on 1 a.m. But for Falcon Heavy, I mean,
yeah,
that hole it punched in the clouds is, I'll pull a 36 hour. I'll do whatever it takes to catch something like that. Worth
yeah,
it
no,
every time.
100% worth it if the rocket's right. I mean, Starship, that's something that I would stay up for as long as I need to, just to make sure I caught it. And it's just that cool. It's that exciting of a vehicle. A Falcon 9, I don't know if I would stay up all night for a Falcon 9 as routine as it's gotten. Falcon 9, it's kind of funny because, I mean, and Starship will get to the same point eventually, I'm sure, but Falcon 9 has just kind of gotten to the point where it's boring. You just kind of expect it all to do it. The booster landings on the barge out in the ocean has just become like a normal thing. You just expect the booster to land. Whereas back in 2016, when they first started really landing the boosters, and it was kind of more of an experimental thing, everyone was freaking out when they saw the booster land on those barges out in the ocean, and they were amazed by the level of precision needed to land it on the barge out in the ocean, and now we're seeing them catch it in a set of metal arms attached to the launch tower with even more precision. So SpaceX just knows how to keep people excited for space flight.
Yeah, it's insane, and I'll mirror that. That I'm lucky to live in an area where I can, in some cases, literally just get up on my roof, and even though I'm a couple hundred miles away, I can see launches from Vandenberg. I'll go out for like the night Starlink launches if they're nighttime, but for the most part, unless there's something exceptional, I don't tend to get out for as many of the Starlink launches because, like you said, they've just kind of become become routine. And it's interesting to look at where Starship is, where Artemis is, and looking back at the shuttle because that was one of the difficulties with the shuttle is that it was all the shuttle got very routine and it kind of got mundane until something went wrong. And it is important to keep that perspective. And I think these flight tests help keep the perspective that this is insanely difficult. What's happening here, whether it's Starship, whether it's Artemis, whether it's just just another Starlink launch. This is incredibly difficult, and it is insane seeing people flying to the moon, multiple launches that are landing rockets like happening every week, and then of course this monster next to us. It's crazy. It is completely crazy. So Mike, what are the biggest goals for this launch? The biggest goals for this launch are going to be getting off the pad with the V3 booster and ship, getting to staging, so having the booster separate and release the ship, and then being able to have the ship go through a successful entry. Those are going to be the big milestones. The next kind of milestones would be the landing, or the, I guess, simulated catch for the booster, because again, it's not going to actually get caught. It is going to go do its own, simulated catch sequence with an imaginary tower over the Gulf, and then for the ship to be able to do a number of on-orbit demonstrations, like a relight of the engine and payload deploy. But again, the biggest goals are just getting it through the actual flight events, liftoff, staging, up to MECO for the ship, and then being able to have the ship in control during entry. Those are going to be the big objectives here because, this is a new design of the ship. This is a new design of the booster. They've changed so much that just making sure those basic milestones are hit is the big goal.
Yeah. We obviously want to see SpaceX wants this thing to be 100% successful today because they want the program to continue to progress forwards. There's been a lot of hiccups and delays because of Starship V2 and the campaign with that version of the ship, and so we're hoping to just kind of start from a clean slate today. We're going to pretend like V2 didn't exist, and we're going to just keep moving forwards today with this vehicle and hopefully see it get through all of its milestones throughout the flight successfully because, like you're saying, liftoff, obviously, not coming back down to the pad like someone suggested in the comments earlier, not falling back on the pad. Stage separation, boost back, landing of the booster in the Gulf, and then that Starlink simulator deployment on the ship. Raptor engine relight to demonstrate that the ship is able to deorbit itself, and then reentry, and then the splashdown of the engine relight and splashdown of the ship as well afterwards, after reentry. So a lot of things to look forward to today, a lot of things that we're going to be excited to see it hit these milestones throughout the mission, and we just hope that it does it. We want this, at least in my mind, I want this to look so perfect that it's like they've done this dozens of times already before, which technically they have done it a dozen times, just not with this vehicle, not with this version of the vehicle. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is, this launch is especially important for SpaceX because the race is on for HLS, for the Human Landing System. SpaceX are not just racing against the clock to, for Artemis 3 and 4 to be able to land a Starship on the moon, but they are also working alongside Blue Origin, who have their own lander. So this mission is crucial. If they can have total success, I think there's a good shot that they could be getting the lander ready. A major issue with this flight would be could have significant effects for SpaceX's lunar timeline. And, that is, at this point, at least with Starship, that's one of the big goals of Starship is supporting the Artemis program and being one of our two landers that will return humans to the lunar surface.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Blue Origin, they've got their own lander. They miraculously, after New Glenn Flight 2, all of a sudden started posting pictures of all their hardware. Like, hey guys, by the way, we've got this. And didn't really say anything about it beforehand. We had no idea how far along they were in their development of their program and development of their lunar lander. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, we've got flight ready hardware right here. And we were testing it actively. And it's going to be launching here in the next couple of months. And so Blue Origin, it kind of feels like, as slow as it seems like they have been in the past couple of years getting New Glenn off the ground, it seems like all of a sudden now they are moving at light speed, getting their lunar program ready to go and New Glenn ready to go. And so SpaceX, even though they have been moving super quickly with the Starship program, we need to see this ship be successful today so they can continue to progress forwards and stay caught up with Blue Origin, so they have a chance at competing with that with Artemis 3, getting that contract for Artemis 3.
Absolutely. And I'll say, more heavy lift rockets, more moon landers, more happy. I want to see as much of this as we can. One of the things I kind of have liked to say is, remember Blue Origin's their company motto, Gradatum Ferociter, step by step ferociously. Well, I think we spent a long time with them being in the step by step part, and now they're in the ferocious part. And in some ways, the gauntlet has kind of been thrown for SpaceX to keep up. And that's part of what makes it so exciting. Is I think the competition between these two will make both of them better. I think we're going to see more interesting and a faster pace from Blue Origin, and I think Blue being so heavily in the game, I think we're likely to see SpaceX really having to push a lot more for end-to-end success on these missions.
Yeah, no, the competition is awesome to see, and like you said, more rockets, more lunar landers, the better. I think it's going to be awesome to see just every single company out there just trying to innovate and do it in their own way to get us back to the moon, and then hopefully eventually one day get us to Mars as well. But the moon is the first step on that path to Mars. I think if we can't successfully establish like a presence on the moon, we're going to struggle a lot with that, with our Mars presence even further away from Earth. So Artemis program is just, we're kind of on the topic of Artemis now all of a sudden, but Artemis program is going to be really exciting to see it progress forwards. And I'm hoping Starship can stay a crucial component of that. And we're not going to see them kind of fall behind the other companies competing for that.
Absolutely. I think that's, the moon to Mars is, I think one of the great things to see with SpaceX is, as much as the Mars idea, because like you said, SpaceX GT, weren't they going to try Mars this year? Originally, that was the plan. I think Starship is just not quite at that point yet. I think there's still a ways to go for them to do that. And I think it also kind of represents the wider aerospace industry kind of starting to align themselves with this Artemis moon to Mars goal. And it's tremendously exciting seeing it all happen. I was going somewhere with that, and I have totally forgotten where I was going.
I've done that several times today, so don't feel bad.
Absolutely. But yeah, they were going to originally try Mars. That it seems that the moon is now going to be the main goal. And a big part of, even if you love Starship or love Blue Origin, one of the things that I always root for is both of them. And, a part of the reason that NASA has contracted both SpaceX and Blue Origin, and even a part of why they still have Boeing Starliner flying for ISS is what's called dissimilar redundancy. Because if you have a major problem with a vehicle and that's your only way to get to space, all of a sudden you could lose access to something like the ISS. Looking back at the shuttle, when the second shuttle disaster happened, the world only had the Soyuz that could get people to and from the ISS. And after the shuttle stopped flying, there were a few Soyuz incidents, and in those periods, we risked losing all crew access to the ISS. So when you have multiple vehicles that can fill this same role that are totally different, if one has an issue, you can say that the other one isn't going to have that same problem. And so in this case, for landing on the moon, we would still be able to maintain the Artemis program even if maybe Blue Origin had a problem. Well, then SpaceX could take over, or if SpaceX had a problem, then you still have Blue Origin. And that's why we love to see the competition, but at the end of the day, we're rooting for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know there's a lot of people. You see the wars on X and stuff of people in the comments like, "Oh, SpaceX is gonna do it," or "Oh no, Blue Origin, we want Blue Origin to take it all." Like I think we need to kind of be in the mindset of like we want everyone to succeed. We want to see everyone on the same path for the same goal to achieve our lunar presence.
Absolutely. One moment. I have an
No,
exciting update.
all good.
Uh, let's see if I can do this really quickly. I'm going to attempt something here. Let's go to here
You've got me on the edge of my
because
seat.
we have some interesting guests coming in to Starbase right now, live on ADSB. We have Ghost 11, Ghost 11, which is an F5 heading toward Port Isabel. So it looks like our NASA administrator may be heading in for a pad flyby. I am so excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess he is NASA administrator, but I was gonna say I would be surprised if they let him come into the airspace there for a flyby.
Yeah, we'll see exactly where he goes. He may fly sort of just skirting. They may fly just like skirting the edge of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or maybe even on the close side, like the inner sort of land side of the TFR, of the no-fly zone. But we are potentially going to see a fighter jet flyby, and hopefully, the amazing Joaquin out there bringing us this camera view will be able to catch it. From what I'm hearing, it should be a 3-ship formation, so it potentially could be 3 of them flying together in formation.
Yeah, we'll see what Joaquin's able to spot. Hopefully, they come close enough where he's able to kind of get them locked in on the camera.
And thank you, Klon. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. I think the more, just in general, even beyond what we do or some of the other outlets, the more views, the more unique content, the more unique cameras that are on these launches, the better. It's I don't think there's ever been a better time to be out there in the world watching launches. It's great.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we are in the midst of kind of a new space age like we saw back in the 1950s, 1960s. We're back in that again, where innovation is kind of taking off at light speed again. We've got, obviously, SpaceX is at the forefront of this, but we've got Blue Origin that has come out of the woodworks, as we were just talking about. And here by the end of the year, we're hoping to see companies like Rocket Lab and Relativity and Stoke Space all come out with their own vehicles that are all going to be reusable and trying different things to increase our access to space. And so there's all kinds of really exciting things to look forward to. And obviously, like we're talking about the Artemis program still too. The Artemis program is in full swing now that we've got Artemis 2 off the ground. Jared Isaacman, the NASA administrator, who we might see here in a little bit. Um, he is like full pedal to the metal trying to get the next missions off the ground, Artemis 3, Artemis 4, so that we can get our human presence back to the moon. So there's so much stuff. Like you can literally look at any aspect of any space program, and there's something cool going on with it. So I am always extremely excited. I'm super stoked to see everything. Even if I can't physically get down there to watch the rockets launch myself, like I'm right there in the webcast, hopefully watching the rocket launch live too. So I want to see all of these guys succeed and whatever they're trying to strive for, because the more access we have to space, I mean, the more we can do as a civilization, as a species.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The more the better. I know one of the big things I'm personally looking forward to and really excited for is Blue Origin continuing to expand. It just recently Blue signed an agreement with the Space Force to bring New Glenn out to Vandenberg, which I could not be more excited for. We don't have anything yet on it, but there is always the possibility that SpaceX could expand Falcon Heavy out this way as well. I do know that I'm keeping a close eye on West Coast Falcon Heavy, which is in the works at this point, because SpaceX has taken over former Launch Complex 6, the former West Coast home of Delta IV Heavy, and now we are heading toward heavy lift coming back to the West Coast. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there and get to cover these things. It's just, yeah, like you said, I was having this thought the other day during Artemis, especially, that really we are kind of in a new golden age of spaceflight. It's very analogous. It's very similar to the 1960s when were just so many different vehicles. And so thinking about the vehicle that we have on the pad here, as we wait for those F5s to come into view, we are coming up on the first major milestone. In just under 5 minutes, SpaceX will be conducting the go, no-go poll for fueling.
Yeah, I was actually just about to start pointing out. I mean, you've got a lot of activity coming off from those towers and that fuel farm there at the launch site, which indicates that fueling is like 100% underway right now. So it seems like we've had a couple pushbacks in the countdown, and the tower and stuff wasn't as active as it is now. So I think SpaceX is holding off for a little bit, and then there might be. Obviously, we're just speculating right now because we don't know. SpaceX hasn't started their official stream where we have any official information coming from them yet, but there's a lot more activity going on now. So SpaceX might be starting to get more confident with the weather conditions and stuff like that. So we're under an hour now. We're under T-minus 55 minutes until launch. And so SpaceX might be starting to get increased confidence for launch here in the next 55 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'll say that the big tower event happening there is a good sign, because one of the things that they have to do is, before they can start loading these liquid oxygen, liquid methane, these cryogenic propellants onto the ship, they have to make sure that all those propellant lines running along the tower are nice and cold and chilled down. So that is an indication that they are starting to seriously cool and prepare to load propellant onto the ship. Again, the go no go poll is going to be happening in about 3 minutes. If they are green across the board, if they poll go to start fueling, then propellant load will start about 20 or so minutes after that at T-minus 39 minutes. But in that 20-minute period, a lot of stuff is going to start happening. You're going to see the tank farm is going to spin up even more. That tower vent is going to continue. Things have been in a kind of a steady state here at the launch site. But there's going to be a flurry of activity that's just going to get busier and busier up until the moment where, pretty much up until the moment where that vehicle lifts off.
Yeah, no, SpaceX have somehow managed, with whatever magic they have, they load propellant onto this vehicle, even though it's the largest operational rocket here in it's the largest operational rocket in the world. They've somehow managed to figure out how to load propellant onto this in record amounts of time. I mean, you see SLS, which is a very similar sized rocket to Starship. It takes them hours upon hours to fully load that vehicle with fuel and get it topped off before they even send people out to the pad to put them on top of the rocket. They started like, I think it was like T-8 hours was when they started fueling operations or something like that.
It starts before it starts even before that.
Even before that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean and it's worth noting that different vehicles are going to have different countdowns, and I think this was one of the interesting takeaways I got from some of the Artemis press conferences was where you actually start a countdown is kind of subjective. At some level, you kind of just pick a point and put it there. But like the serious countdown and the pre-fueling operations for SLS, because a lot of it is still based on the heritage of the shuttle, and it just operates in a different way. A lot of that stuff is happening like almost 48 hours, almost 2 days before launch, where, yeah, like you said, I don't know what kind of engineering wizardry SpaceX has managed to pull, but being able to load this incredible amount of propellant onto this vehicle so quickly it's mind-blowing. It is genuinely hard to believe that they have pulled it off.
Yeah, unheard of. And a lot of stuff, I think, with the newly engineered pad they're launching from a brand new Pad 2 today. First time ever launching from this launch pad, but the first time ever launching this brand new vehicle. There are a lot of firsts today with today's launch, which is why it's such a big deal. But they have managed to increase like the efficiency and speed of everything with this new launch site and the ship. You're going to notice as well with a lot of the milestones through flight. We have the new Raptor 3 engines on the base of the booster, and this thing is going to get off the pad a lot faster than past versions of Starship have, just because of the increased thrust of the Raptor 3 engines. And so you're going to see milestones like max Q, stage separation, all happening in a couple seconds, maybe like 15 to 20 seconds earlier than we've seen on past flights. So SpaceX just managed to speed up this entire process with the new Starship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have just got an update in the back channel that SpaceX has pulled go for propellant load. So
that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, we are in, and they've just tweeted as much, we are in the launch count. 49 minutes and 33 seconds from now, we are hoping to see SpaceX lift off. In about 10 or 15 minutes, we should expect to see SpaceX bring their stream live. Keeping an eye on those F5s, it looks like they might be heading into Brownsville, actually, instead of just making a flyby. But either way, it looks like the NASA administrator has... Oh, no, they're making a turn. But it looks like our NASA administrator has made his way out here for this flight. The nerves are on now. It's like the go for propellant load, and in fact now you can see that big vent on the tower has gotten even bigger.
Yeah, and it looks like even the vent coming from the fuel farm is getting a lot bigger too. So there's a lot of activity starting to fire up now there at the launch site.
Yeah, you're going to see the propellant lines on the ground, the propellant lines on the tower. Those are all going to start getting super frosty. And then the big milestone that we're hoping to see, that big next visible milestone, will probably be the subcoolers and the methane reclaiming system. You'll see all of those start up at the tank farm, and then hopefully we will see a frost line start to form on the booster.
Yeah, and given we were just talking about how much faster everything's going to happen, I expect to see now that propellant load has been pulled go, we're going to start to see that frost appear on the rocket very quickly here, and it's just going to climb that rocket super fast too as the fueling progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things we've seen in these in the wet dress rehearsals. We're really, for those of us who are like rocket watchers and rocket chasers, really grateful for SpaceX for all of these wet dress rehearsals and tests. As much as we want the testing to go smoothly, the multiple tries at the static fire has been kind of great in a way, because it has given us such a good insight into what the launch flow is actually like and what different milestones in propellant loading before engine start are actually going to look like. so that we, when it comes, when it's go time like this, we're not getting caught off guard and totally surprised by like, different milestones that we thought might happen that might not happen. That it's all sort of like we've got an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to just how publicly accessible SpaceX has made everything. I mean, we've got people like NASA Spaceflight that just have 24/7 cameras pointed at this thing at all times. And so we know every little detail about this rocket on the outside, it seems like, where all their operations for fueling and static fires, we know exactly like what to look out for each milestone throughout the countdown just because of how accessible SpaceX has made this to us. And we don't get that level of access with really any other company. You can't just walk up into uh, Kennedy Space Center or anything like that and watch a rocket, or you can't go into any of the private like you have like the Stennis Space Center and stuff where they test a lot of things for like Rocket Lab and Blue Origin. You can't just walk into those facilities and watch all their tests that they do. So it's really cool to be able to have this level of access to Starbase, and I'm hoping that we can continue to have that as the program progresses, because there has been a couple things. SpaceX has started to build more walls around the launch site and stuff, and it seems like they're maybe starting to restrict a little bit from us, but it's still a public highway right there. And so as long as that public highway access doesn't get taken away from us, I think we're going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a careful balance, especially at a place like that, with making sure the public have access to the areas they need to go versus making sure that everything stays safe.
Mm-hmm.
It is very different than Kennedy or Vandenberg out here, because technically Kennedy and Vandenberg are kind of, especially Canaveral Space Force Station in Vandenberg, are active military bases. So security around those and security at Kennedy Space Center are much higher. But SpaceX, as launches get more frequent, simply they're just gonna have to keep a little tighter tabs on where people are and where the public can and can't go, because you want to make sure, you don't want to like just totally knock the public out of being able to see this stuff. As you said, it is a public highway, it's a public beach. SpaceX is legally obligated to make sure that the public can get access there, but you also got to prepare. You've got to keep people safe, and it has happened before at Starbase that sometimes people wander in places where they're not supposed to go. And so, SpaceX security is there for a reason. And for anyone who is out there, we want to make sure that, everyone are good guests of SpaceX in the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm. And right as you're saying all that, I'm noticing a way more activity as we lose Joaquin's video feed. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened there, but a lot more vents coming up from that fuel farm. It looked like 3 individual vents coming up there. A lot of activity is starting to spool up as they begin the fueling operations there. Hopefully, we can get Joaquin's camera back here soon. And
yep,
as we and
I can also confirm SpaceX has brought their live stream up. So
yeah, I was literally just about to say that. I was gonna say once we hopefully get SpaceX's feed up here soon too.
Yep. Another good indication. This is just another one of those milestones that we have been looking for, saying that they are still targeting 6:30 Central Time for liftoff. For the moment, seems that the countdown is rolling smoothly. The next big event, really big event, should be once they start propellant flow to the vehicle. Again, that'll be at about 39 minutes before launch. If everything goes perfectly, what's next for Starship? If everything goes perfectly for Starship in this flight, the next thing we would expect would be in Flight 13, we would expect to see a double catch. We would expect to see the booster come back and do the catch that we've kind of gotten used to seeing. We would also expect to see the ship go to orbit, do some work in orbit, and then be able to return to Starbase and actually make its first successful recovery. And wow, look at that.
Look at that view. What a beautiful view of the ship with that drone view they've got for the SpaceX. So the feed we just brought up is the official SpaceX stream as we wait, which it does look like we also got Joaquin's. I don't. Sorry. up on the to go off of, as we're looking at both. I gotta get the. Sorry, I got SpaceX Stream in my ear, and it's kind of throwing me off here as I'm talking. But we've got SpaceX Stream running, and then we've also got we got Joaquin's camera feed, which just came back up. We lost it there for a couple seconds, and so we're hoping now we've got both these feeds to go off of. We're gonna start. We'll have a lot of really good views of the rocket as we near liftoff, and after liftoff, even we'll have the SpaceX views and also Joaquin's tracking shot as the rocket goes up.
Yeah, and I will say we're getting a little preview on SpaceX's broadcast of some of these camera angles. They just showed off a wide-angle view from the engine section of the ship, and that's going to be unbelievable to watch during staging. SpaceX did mention that they had a lot more new cameras and locations on this vehicle, and we are starting to see a little bit of that. Back to Joaquin's feed here, the methane subcoolers are getting more and more and more active, and you're seeing that tower vent continuing to, it's continuing, but it's getting heavier. Instead of just being a big fluffy cloud of gas, it looks like there is a fairly significant amount of liquid oxygen now venting out of there. That's exactly what we expect to see. This is making sure, again, that all those propellant lines that are going to run to the ship are nice and cold so that they can do this incredible, like, maybe not quite light speed, but this super, super fast fueling sequence.
Yeah, and the whole point of having everything chilled down like that, we want to make sure that none of the fuel is boiling off as it's being loaded on, because if you're losing fuel, then it's not going where it needs to go if it's boiling off inside the line somewhere along the way. So we want to see every drop of fuel go into this rocket as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, and the same goes for the internal parts of the ship as well. If a rocket engine is running and it suddenly is expecting liquid and it suddenly gets gas, those rocket engines get unhappy very, very quickly.
Oh yeah, if you don't want to starve a rocket engine of its fuel, otherwise it starts to eat itself.
Yeah. So what parts? Good question from Mike. What parts of the launch should viewers be paying close attention to?
Is that a question for me? Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, I figured I'd throw it over to you and see.
No,
yeah,
definitely. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
So there's a lot to look forward to with this launch, as we've been talking about for the past hour or so. Leading up to liftoff, you definitely want to start seeing those frost lines appear on the rocket, and that's good indications that fuel is being loaded on board. Right as we get into the final parts of the countdown, you're going to see the newly built launch pad. The water deluge system is going to fire up. You're going to see just tremendous amounts of water start firing out from underneath that rocket right before liftoff, which acts as protection for the launch pad itself and also sound suppression for this massive vehicle, which I anticipate is going to be even louder than what the previous version of Starship was, given the higher thrust coming off of this thing. It's going to be just a spectacle when this thing gets off the ground, which hopefully we see it. We're just under T-minus 40 minutes. Hopefully we see this thing get off the ground, and it's just going to be absolutely insane to see. But leading up to the countdown, I think the main thing is really just going to be watching that frost build up on the booster as the propellant loads onto the Starship, and on the booster. And then sorry, I just got distracted by the SpaceX stream there. You're seeing that human for scale next to Starship. You can see how massive this vehicle is.
That's crazy.
And obviously, video does not do it justice. You have to be there and see it in person yourself with your own eyes to just truly take in the scale of this vehicle. But back on track with the question, after liftoff, things that the viewers should be looking forward to most is going to be making it to stage separation. I think is going to be the primary thing today. We want to see it's showing off the new hot stage ring. As you can see on past versions of Starship, they had the hot staging ring on there, but they had to jettison it from the booster because it was additional weight that couldn't be carried for the landing burn. And so in this new version of the super heavy booster, they've integrated that hot stage ring into the vehicle, so that way they don't have to jettison it anymore. Because obviously we want this vehicle's entire purpose to be 100% reusable. So if you're ditching parts of it to bring your booster back home, it kind of defeats the 100% reusable plan for the rocket. But stage separation is gonna be the big thing. You're gonna see it Starship will fire up its engines, and hot stage you're gonna see that plume kind of push the booster away from the engine plume from Starship will push the booster away from it, as the booster then does that flip maneuver that we've seen in the past, as it flips back to point back to Starbase and light up its engines to come back home. It's not going to be coming all the way back home today. It's going to be splashed down in the Gulf, a couple miles off the coast there of Starbase. But it's going to be a pretty much 100% simulated booster catch, because, like we were also saying earlier, the booster thinks that there's a tower there. When it goes into land, it thinks that it's going into tower arms right there, and so you're going to see it. It'll come into a hover for a brief moment. You might see it kind of translate itself left or right when it comes down to land, and that's pretty much the booster thinking that it's guiding itself into the catch arms on the tower. But I'm kind of going all over the place with those milestones. But like I was saying, stage separation with that hot staging ring is going to be the main thing we want to look forward to today. And then after separation, we want to see the booster come back and do that simulated catch, have a successful splashdown in the Gulf. Booster 19 will unfortunately meet its demise today, as Frank has referred to today. It's going to have a Viking funeral once it comes down and splashes down. So we will not see Booster 19 anymore after today's flight. But it's all for the greater good of getting Starship to further progress in its program and see it become a fully operational vehicle. But after stage separation, we want to see Starship achieve its quote-unquote orbit. It is going to be on sub-orbital trajectory, but it's going to be really close to being in an actual orbit. They stop just before it reaches orbital velocity, so it guarantees the ship will come back. No matter what happens after engine shutdown, it guarantees the ship will re-enter the atmosphere, and we're not going to have a ginormous piece of space junk stuck up there in space. And so we want to see it achieve that kind of orbital insertion. And then from there is where the fun begins. You're going to see your Starlink's payloads deploy, and then you're going to see that re-entry of Starship, hopefully, as well, which we've gotten amazing views of thanks to the Starlink terminals that are on board Starship. It's like the first rocket where we can, even as the plasma is fully built up around the vehicle, we're getting HD feeds down from the vehicle during re-entry, which is something, if you guys were watching Orion come back home a couple weeks ago in April, you could start to see the plasma built up around the Orion spacecraft with the Artemis crews coming home. And then as soon as it got too thick, we lost those feeds for like the next 7 minutes after that. So we kind of get spoiled by all the stuff that SpaceX has been able to do, all the engineering that's been put into the vehicle, where we just get all of these camera views, no matter what phase of the flight it's in. We just have camera views visible to us, which not a lot of other launch companies can really provide to us right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a reminder, if you're enjoying the coverage today and want to help support us, we do have channel membership. Our intern level gets you priority replies to comments, member shoutouts, and a loyalty badge next to your name in the chat. Launch Director will get your name displayed on stream during our webcasts and videos. You also get Discord access, where you can hang out, talk with the team, kind of get a sense for what's going on. Closeout Crew, I think, is one of the coolest, because that has everything below it, but you also get early access to the photos and videos, as well as a 10% merchandise discount, and Range Officer bumps that discount up to 25%. And I'll tell you, seeing some of the behind-the-scenes inside baseball that's been going on with the team, and where they are getting the remote cameras set up, as well as if there's any kind of crazy vapor cones like last time with Starship, don't want to miss out on those photos. The team, I was blown away. I'm always blown away by what the team gets. Falcon Heavy was a good example of the crazy stuff. And if you like I said, if you want to support us, and if you want to be the first to see those insane images, we are always grateful for your support. And look who's that. Look who's there in the chat. Friend of the channel, Aussie How's it going?
Welcome, Ozzy, to the stream. Nice to see you here. I'm glad you were able to find some time there. I don't know how many hours ahead you are. What? Tell us in the chat. What time is it there in Australia right now, Ozzy? But awesome to see you here in the stream watching Starship. We're hoping we're getting pretty close. We're getting close to that T-30 here, so we're hoping that everything is on track and we're going to see this thing lift off. The pressure's building. You can feel it. You can feel it.
Yeah, the nerves are rising. One of the things we should be seeing fairly soon is a frost line forming somewhere on the vehicle. You can see the methane recondensers are going absolutely crazy right now. And that's a good indication that propellant is now flowing into the super heavy booster.
Yep, and that tower vent has stopped as well, which is a good indicator of propellant load. So,
yep, that means they're probably starting to fuel the ship as well. And it's being currently about 30 minutes out. We expected to see that happen about 10 minutes ago. So that means anytime now we should start to see those frost lines forming, and that's one of the big visual indicators that we really are moving forward. And then at about 10 minutes from now, we should start seeing we should start seeing a lot more venting. I think Joaquin is there looking for those frost lines, seeing if we can see anything. But about 10 minutes from now, we should start seeing a lot more venting around the base of the vehicle, because at 21 minutes they start chilling down those mighty Raptor 3 engines, all 33. Yeah, things are it's kind of always this way with launch countdowns, where it feels like a lot of nothing happening for a bit of a while, and then all of a sudden, it feels like the fueling and terminal count feels like it takes like 10 seconds, and just everything happens so quickly.
And there it goes, it's in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's like go from like, okay, they're starting propellant, getting my camera set up, and you blink and then you're out of breath, and like Miko has happened, and you're just like sitting there with your camera just like, what just happened?
No, I mean, that was the same. I've only had the privilege of watching one of these in person. I was there last year. It was almost exactly a year ago when Flight 9 happened. It was right here, right after Memorial Day. It happened right after Memorial Day last year. I think it was around the 29th when it launched last year for Flight 9. But here we are right before Memorial Day weekend, launching Flight 13 a year later. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it down there for that one. But seeing Flight 9 in person, even though there wasn't anything crazy or flashy happening, no booster catches or anything, I mean, it's amazing how quickly everything happened. You saw the water deluge fire up, or the booster bidet, as a lot of people have been calling it, because it launched from the old Pad 1 that they're now kind of deconstructing, and they're gonna mirror what we see with Pad 2. They're gonna match Pad 1 now. So unfortunately, we're not going to see any of that really cool launch infrastructure that the Starship V2 launched from. But seeing how quickly everything happened, seeing the water fire up, and then those engines were up, and then the rocket was in the air and gone. I mean, it's something that I will never forget, being able to see it in person.
Yeah, and I've seen my fair share of Falcon 9 launches, as well as this week I caught a little Minuteman 3 action, and I have a couple Delta 4 heavies as well, and it's like this with every rocket. Terminal count, it moves so quickly, it's just unforgettable. 65 launches in, and I've got memories from all of them. It's so cool. And talking about the ground infrastructure, we are starting to see SpaceX expand Starship's ground infrastructure out at Kennedy Space Center. Just earlier this week, they did the first deluge tests with the Starship pad at Pad 39A. Former home of Crew Dragon, and where Falcon Heavy just launched from recently. And I believe we saw some aerial photography showing that the flame trenches are starting to get dug out at Slick 37, former home of Delta 4 Heavy, where SpaceX is going to be constructing a pair of side-by-side Starship launch towers and pads. So for the whole Starship program, especially if this flight goes off smoothly, it feels like things are getting real. And this kind of feels like this test hopefully will mark the shift from a test campaign to starting to move to an operational capability, to a vehicle that does work, is reliable, and a vehicle that is hopefully soon going to be able to start taking Starlink and possibly even other paying customer payloads to orbit, which would be, I think once they are able to start deploying payloads in orbit, that's going to be the big milestone. That means Starship is really here. We've really got an operational capability. This is for real now. Not that it's not real now, but to say that we have this is an operational vehicle. This is something that's going to exist in the launch ecosystem. And one of the interesting things that we've actually just seen that Starship is hoping to enable is a Starlink lunar relay. You may have seen the graphics up there a moment ago on the SpaceX stream. SpaceX is building a specialized Starlink satellite that they will be sending to the moon, and it looks like they're gonna kind of bootstrap the space lasers from the low Earth orbit shell of Starlink to then bridge connectivity to another world, which we've talked a lot about the lunar ambitions and how SpaceX and Starship are so important for the Artemis program. Lunar connectivity is still a big challenge, and this is absolutely going to be a big step in that direction.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, just taking Artemis 2, which happened a month ago, as an example, when the Orion spacecraft passed behind the the dark side of the moon, they lost connection with the astronauts for that entire duration they were behind the moon, because in its current state with lunar communication, you have to have direct line of sight with Earth in order to get connectivity. And so having that shell of Starlink satellites around the moon, you're going to be able to get that connectivity no matter where you're at. You don't have to have that direct line of sight anymore. And based off of what they've done with Starship and the Starlink terminals on board, I kind of think they're just doing that so we can get cool video of the moon too when they're going into land. But
hey, the more high quality video of the moon we get, the better. I'm here for all of it.
100%. I mean, we're already starting to get some really cool. I think NASA just released it not too long ago. The footage of the translunar, or they're one of the burns. They got a cool. They released like HD video from the the ICPS, the intercryogenic propulsion stage. Yeah. Of it lighting up and doing one of its burns during the mission, which we weren't actually able to see during the actual like live stream of everything because they didn't have the proper connectivity. But they got the footage back and we're able to release it to the public. But we're going to see a lot more. Just the imagery we're going to start getting here in the future of lunar missions and everything is going to be unreal here in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple good questions from Mike here. I think, what achievement would we consider to be a huge win for the program? At least for me, I would say getting the ship to entry, having the booster keep all its engines lit, and for the booster to make it to its simulated catch, and then having the ships get to entry in control. I think meeting those milestones that we've seen in some of the previous successful flights, that would be the big milestone for the program today, because this V3 is so different that as much as we want to keep pushing and we want to be more ambitious, we want to see new milestones get met, today's big milestone is the vehicle. These test objectives are pretty similar to Flight 10 and 11. The big difference is the ship. And personally, what are we most excited for? And I'll let you jump in on these as well, obviously. For me, it's that flip. Seeing the Starlink simulators deploy with their cameras, looking back at Starship, and getting to see Starship do some kind of a flip from like you said, like a third-person view. I think that, and then of course always being able to see the reentry in real time. Personally, those are the things I'm most excited for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of right on board with you there. I'm looking forward to seeing those first ever third-person views of Starship in space, coming from those dummy satellites, the dummy Starlink satellites on board. There's 22 of them with an upgraded Pez dispenser on board today. That's kind of the payload for today's mission. Even though they're not going to orbit, there's still a payload. They're going to deploy these dummy Starlink satellites with what we call this Pez dispenser, which, in case you don't know why it's called the Pez dispenser, it literally deploys the Starlink satellites out of the payload bay as if it was a Pez candy dispenser. I hope if you've seen one of those before. If you don't know what a Pez candy dispenser is, please go Google it because the context is important. But there's 22 of those on board compared to like the 8 they had on in the previous missions, and so there's way more dummy satellite simulators on board, and it's supposed to operate a lot faster than the previous version did as well. So once they get into that regime of flight, fingers crossed they make it that far. I'm really hoping we get to see it. But once they get into that phase of flight, we're going to just start seeing these Starlink simulators just start getting spit out. And the last 2 satellites that are going to get deployed both have cameras on board. And so hopefully those cameras are working and we can get the feeds down from them as they're deployed, because it's just going to be an unreal view. And I'm hoping when the deployments happen as well, I'm hoping that it's still kind of on the daylight side of Earth.
I would think that I would imagine that they're going to be having the deployment at least happen somewhat in the daylight. Either that, or they're going to have some pretty big spotlights attached to those 2. I guess they're calling them hot links. Because they have the cameras. Because they are going to need to, have visibility, have light to be able to inspect that heat shield. So right now we've got a great view of those frost lines forming. Ship is just a little bit overall over halfway fueled, 63% on the liquid oxygen, 53% on the methane, and overall booster is about 40% fueled. Propellant load is moving along super, super fast. And in just a couple moments, you can already see the big cloud of vapor and condensation starting to creep along the ground. Going to see more of that, and we may even see some of that starting to show up in the flame trench, because just about a minute ago, the chill down for those 33 V3 Raptor engines that are powering the super heavy booster today has started. Boy, I mean, it just feels like they are just hitting milestone after milestone. Once whatever the big holdup was, whether it was, weather or a technical issue, now that they've cleared that, it really is just kind of like a sprint through the fueling sequence. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, SpaceX is they're getting antsy. They want to get this thing off the pad, I think, as soon as possible. I think a lot of people are going to be bummed out if anything happens to scrub the rocket today, because we've got the holiday weekend ahead of us here as well in the United States. Other countries don't really observe Memorial Day, but here in the United States, we've got Memorial Day weekend coming up, and that's going to put a total dampener on any launch possibilities until after that holiday passes on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Mike, as you just saw with the graphics on screen and the frost lines that you can see forming now on the booster, they are well into loading fuel and oxygen onto Starship. Overall, right now, the propellant load sequence is probably at about the halfway point. And we are currently just sitting at just under 19 minutes to launch. So again, just the volume of propellant that they're able to load so quickly, it's hard to wrap your head around it. It's thousands. I mean, this is thousands of tons of liquid oxygen and liquid methane, and they load it all in just over half an hour.
Just over half an hour, yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, we're at the 50% marker right now, and there's 20 minutes left until liftoff. So the volume of fuel in the next 20 minutes that's going to be loaded onto the vehicle is unreal.
Yeah. It's. I mean, GSE is crazy. I've also just heard from the SpaceX. You can see them putting their buoys together here. There are going to be multiple buoys and possibly even more than one drone flying for the, I believe, for the ship landing out there in the Indian Ocean. So if all goes according to plan and the flight goes smoothly, we should get some really, really unbelievable views of the actual landing sequence for ship, and that should give us a super detailed view as well of how that heat shield is looking after going through that brutal reentry sequence.
Yeah, and we saw those views on like Flight 10 when they had a lot of those metallic test tiles on the belly of the ship, and uh, as they start to get vaporized in the plasma stream, the deposits from that metal being vaporized spread down the belly of the rocket, and it became an orange rocket. Everyone was starting to talk about, oh, maybe orange rocket's not so bad when they saw Starship turn orange. Um, but we might see that again today because there are which we might see some close-ups of the belly here as we get closer to liftoff and stuff. But they have those metallic tiles kind of lined up the sides of the vehicles for this flight, and I think this is also, there might be like one tile missing on the entire vehicle. This is probably the most full heat shield we've had on any launch so far, and so it's really cool to see that as well. That SpaceX has finally decided to go like full 99.9% heat shield on the vehicle today, because in past flights, I mean, they've been intentionally removing heat shields all over the place just to kind of see what happens in different places, see if like maybe the plasma burns through the tanks or something, or what happens if there is a burn through on the tank, and all kinds of stuff. And so now we've got a full belly of heat shield tiles. It'll be really interesting to see how it performs on that reentry today, and how much more maybe robust it will be.
Absolutely. And now I'll circle back to that. But just a moment ago, we were talking about the Starship infrastructure out at Kennedy Space Center. And it looks like we are getting a great view of the Star Factory that SpaceX, well, we were getting a great view there of the infrastructure at Pad 39A and the Star Factory for supporting Starship that SpaceX is building out there at Kennedy Space Center. But like you said, the heat shield is, I think this is the most complete and the overall best looking heat shield that I've seen. There's always, for past ships, there's always been some odd gaps, maybe a couple tiles missing, maybe some cracked or some damaged tiles. This one looks by far the most clean. I think there's at least one tile, if not more, that are missing. A few tiles they've painted white to study the heat flow, if they had the black coating removed. Because the reason for that, the reason that the heat shield is black is this isn't, the heat shield isn't burning away. It isn't just stopping the heat. That heat comes into the heat shield, and that black color on the tiles actually lets it radiate out. That's kind of the best color for getting rid of the heat. It's the same thing you saw on the shuttle, and if you paint those tiles white, they may not get as hot as quickly, but they're also not going to dissipate that heat as fast. And so that's also one of the things that can happen with tiles when they're damaged. So they are conducting a few localized experiments as far as what the heat flow might look like for damaged tiles that have lost their coating. And again, like you've mentioned as well, we have a few more of those metallic tiles, which, as an orange rocket enjoyer, someone who started rocket watching with Delta IV Heavy, who can still remember the shuttle, who has a deep love for SLS, I'm not going to complain about seeing Starship turn orange. I think maybe we're seeing convergent evolution here, where it all comes back to orange rockets.
It all comes back to orange rocket. I mean, the whole entire heat shield might just be orange one day. You never know.
We never know. Either that, or maybe they like do the Sophie spray on foam on the back, and maybe Starship turns partially orange. Who knows? But I'm not disappointed to see it. And drinking and thinking, your dad says hi. Well, we say hi right back. Thank you guys. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for watching. We are just 13 minutes away from launch. It's getting close.
It's getting real. It's getting really real right now. I mean, I'm feeling like the anxiety kind of in me building up, like the anticipation, not knowing what's going to happen here in the next couple of minutes. But I'm in for it no matter what happens. I'm excited to see how this all turns out, how it all plays out.
Yeah. Now we've got a really cool view here, a rendering of what SpaceX thinks a lunar city may look like. That is one of the goals of Starship. They pivoted from Mars to the moon, and of course, as always, right as I mention it, it turns back to the desk. But that is representative of the larger shift we've seen with Starship, where originally the plan was Mars. Now there has been a much bigger need for support for the Artemis program, and I think they've kind of gotten in line with the idea of the moon to Mars as the moon as a way to get to Mars. And even for Starship, the moon is going to be that kind of first stepping stone where if we can get there and we can stay there, then that makes getting to Mars with people much more possible.
No, definitely. I was saying that earlier. The moon is that first stepping stone, because I think SpaceX was just kind of like fully goal is Mars. We're going to Mars, and there wasn't much talk of the moon. But if you really think about it, it's like the moon is way closer to us, a lot easier to get to. And if we kind of struggle to establish a presence on the moon, I mean, we've established a low Earth orbit presence with humans, where we have constant 24/7, 365 presence of humans on the ISS and low Earth orbit. Even after the ISS gets retired here in the next couple of years, we're hoping to have some commercial space stations take over, and we're hoping to continue that presence in low Earth orbit, but from multiple space stations rather than just one. But that then leads to the moon, where as we start to build out that lunar infrastructure, if we start to struggle, like humans living on the moon for long extended durations of time, and establishing that 365 24/7 presence on the moon, it kind of brings into question, like, how are we supposed to do this even further away at Mars, where there's a lot more complications that come into play? Because I mean, the moon, you can kind of go there and come back home sort of whenever you want to. The launch windows are a lot more flexible with the moon, but with Mars, it's every 2 years. You get a very limited amount for your optimal launch window, and you've got to hit that if you want to come back home, or if you want to go there, or if you want to come back home. And so we want to be able to make sure that anyone that goes to Mars, they're going to be able to live there for 2 years straight, essentially, until they can hit their window to come back home. So the moon is going to be a crucial stepping stone in that, and establishing all of the infrastructure that we need to take to Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the moon has a lot of benefits. Like you said, it's so much closer. There's so many more launch windows. The communications round trip to be able to talk to someone, to be able to get data, to be able to get a message through for the moon is about 2 seconds there and back. Mars is 20 minutes. Being able to establish humans on the moon, have a presence there, like we did with the ISS. We just this past, I believe, November, crossed over 25 years of continuous habitation in low Earth orbit on the ISS. That was one of the big goals with the shuttle and with the late shuttle program and with ISS, was learning to not just go to space, not just go to orbit, but to live there and to work there. Artemis is going to be doing something, and SpaceX with their lunar plans are going to be doing something similar, learning how to live and work in a lunar environment, how to live and work on another world, so that we can go forward to Mars and be able to live and work there. The moon also has this unique benefit where it is much, much easier to boost yourself out to go to Mars from a lunar orbit. You're already kind of bootstrapping. You're getting that gravity assist already from the moon, where boosting from low Earth orbit, you have to put a lot more energy in. It takes a much more a much beefier vehicle. If you can get everything you need, the vehicle, the people, the propellant, up to a lunar orbit, it is much, much easier, much more efficient to build something big up there and send it on its way to Mars. I think you're talking while muted.
I am muted. You're right. Sorry, I had dogs barking in the background there. I muted my mic a little bit ago, but I want to bring the attention back to Starship just momentarily.
Yeah.
We're under T-minus 10 minutes, at T-minus 8 minutes at this point now, until liftoff. You can see how much more those frost lines have climbed up the vehicle in just the past 10 minutes we've been talking. All that fuel being loaded on the vehicle is absolutely crazy how much they've loaded on there. But we're getting into the final moments of this countdown, and I'm not quite sure where SpaceX is at in their countdown, like if they're watching anything or if everything is still kind of green and good to go. But as of right now, it looks like everything is moving right along really well. But going back to what you're saying with all of the benefits of the moon, I completely agree. And I think SpaceX is making the right move, kind of directing their focus to the moon missions rather than trying to just get straight to Mars. I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And now, like you said, we are really starting to wind up into the countdown, sitting at 7 minutes now, 7 minutes out. A lot of things are going to happen very quickly. We are in the next few minutes going to see propellant load wrap up. One of the indications that will complete is you'll probably see that tower vent get really big again, kind of like it does with Falcon 9. At T minus, don't be shocked because we don't exactly know whether the board is green, if there are any watch items we just haven't heard yet. We're hoping it doesn't happen, but don't be shocked if that clock gets to T minus 40 seconds and holds. If it does, that's not the end of the world. SpaceX still has, from their current T0, half an hour left in the window that they can work with, and that T minus 40 seconds is what you would call a stable hold point. Sometimes in a countdown, there are certain things like loading propellant where if you had to hit pause, you can't just hit pause in that. You have to roll all the way back to an earlier time in the countdown, just because of what's physically going on in the vehicle. Where that 40-second mark, the vehicle can sit there having the propellants topped off, be ready to go, basically at a moment's notice, which gives them a lot of time to be able to be flexible, to work, resolve any issues they might need to, and then they can release the countdown, hit that final go, no-go poll, which happens at 30 seconds before liftoff, and hopefully see this ship fly.
Yeah, and I mean, just in that minute there, we're already T minus 5 now. I mean, it's coming up quick. I was kind of eyeballing the SpaceX stream there. It looks like we had possibly Nicki Minaj on the live stream there for a brief moment. It looked like her. I'm not sure what she was doing there. I wasn't really listening to the audio there. I was listening to you, but that was a neat cameo right there.
Yeah, I mean, the more broad public interest there is in space, the better. I think it's great to see. Yeah, the nerves have gotten super real. We are super, super close. As a reminder, if we get a good liftoff, this will be a one-way trip, sort of a one-way trip for Booster 19. It is going to be doing a simulated landing over the Gulf, and once it shuts those engines off, it is going to come and splash down pretty hard. The ship hopefully will continue on. There are simulated satellites, as well as we are expecting to see a in-space Raptor relight, which I will say, if they can do that, this is the first flight for Raptor 3, first flight for the Raptor vacuums. We've got 33 of those Raptor 3 engines on the booster, 3 of those same sea-level Raptor 3 engines on the ship, as well as 3 vacuum optimized. If on the first flight with them, they can do an engine relight of a Raptor 3 in space, that would be a gigantic milestone. That would show a seriously high level of technical competency. Then again, we are going to be seeing those simulated payloads get deployed, as well as those last 2 simulated Starlink satellites with the cameras on them that are going to give us that super cool view in space of Starship. And then during the entry, which we would expect to start at about T plus 47 minutes, although you can see some plasma before that, there is going to be a little more aggressive maneuvering. We are going to see the ship attempt to make some turns. We are going to see it really kind of push the pace a little bit because, like you said, this is a more complete heat shield, and the best way to test a better heat shield is to put the vehicle under a little more stress than it has been in the past.
Yeah, and that's something that SpaceX has been very good at here in the past flights. I mean, Flight 6, for example, they pushed it to its absolute limits, and whatever version of the heat shield they were on with version 1 of Starship, they pushed it to its absolute limits. Flight 6 was the last flight of Starship V1, and they just kind of wanted to throw it away and see what they could do with it. And that ship came back in a very, very toasty condition, but it miraculously was able to still survive that re-entry period, coming back through and landing. It had a successful landing there, which was crazy to see. And so I have a lot of high confidence that no matter how hard they push V3 here, given that it makes it to re-entry today, it's going to be able to stand. It's going to be able to stay resilient. It's going to push its way through to its landing burn.
Yeah, that entry was one of the craziest things I have seen in my entire life. To this day, I still kind of don't know on Flight 6 how, with burn throughs and molten metal coming off of it and everything, how it managed to survive. Now we are just under 1 minute and 40 seconds. We are right here. As a reminder, a lot of things are going to happen really quickly. We may see a hold at T-minus 40 seconds. If we do, that's not a huge problem. If it clears it, the final go is going to be at T-minus 30 seconds. 3 seconds before liftoff, the engine's light, and at T-minus 0, the vehicle will lift off. We're expecting it to hit max Q, the maximum aerodynamic pressure, at about only 45 seconds into launch, which is crazy for a vehicle this big. But those Raptor engines just have so much thrust. We'll expect that booster burn to run for about 2 minutes, 22 seconds, followed by what should be quite an interesting show with hot staging. From there, the ship is going to continue on its way to a suborbital trajectory, and the booster is going to flip around for its offshore kind of landing. Call it a kind of landing. 30 seconds, 39 seconds, 36 seconds.
I'm keeping an eye on the SpaceX stream here to see if they stop at that T-minus 40 second.
And we have a hold.
Yeah, we have stopped at the T-minus 40.
Yep.
That's a normal thing, though. We've seen SpaceX do this in the past. It just gives them a little bit of extra time to clear through things and make sure they're 100% ready to go. That drone view we see of the SpaceX stream, which we don't actually have it up right now, but from the SpaceX stream, you can see the clouds of vapor at kind of the base of the launch pad. I believe that indicates the engine chill there. So obviously, like, those engines are chilled down. They're ready to be lit at any moment. So hopefully we can see SpaceX clear through that T-minus 40 hold here, which...
and the clock is running.
The clock is running. So they're through that T-minus 40. We're going to see this thing go here any second. Any second now. Oh, it looks like they actually reset the clock back. I'm not sure.
Oh, never mind. That may have been an error on SpaceX's part. Oh. We are okay. So SpaceX is at T-minus 41 seconds and holding.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I was gonna say, this is just like, this is just torture on the nerves. It's they've rolled it to 40 seconds, so now they are at 40 seconds and holding. That is the stable hold point. Don't go anywhere. 40 seconds is the blink of an eye. We are hoping to see them get that hold released shortly. Waiting to hear exactly what the hold is, and it looks like the hold has been released.
Yep, and I will say too, there is a delay between the SpaceX stream and our actual feed coming from Joaquin. So if this thing lifts off, we're going to see it launch before the SpaceX stream actually shows it lift off.
Yep.
So,
and they've held again. There still seems to be some confusion on SpaceX's stream. It may be that they're trying to clear something and it's just not cooperating.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on their end, but with the delay, as soon as they clear the countdown, our feed is a little bit earlier than what the SpaceX feed is. More of a delay in the SpaceX feed than ours, so we might see the rocket lift off here before SpaceX shows it lift off. So that countdown, if it gets released, it could already be like released, like, you know, like as we speak, and it's kind of rolling, and we don't realize it until a little too late. So we got to keep our eyes on the rocket, and also keep our eyes on the SpaceX stream to see what happens here. But
yeah, this is a very dynamic situation. We're just waiting to see what happens. I don't remember the exact number, but I do know that SpaceX can hold at this 40-second mark for a considerable amount of time. My understanding is that it is more than just like 5 or 10 minutes. We're hoping it's going to be less than that. We want to see SpaceX be able to release the count and get this bird flying soon. But obviously, we want a safe launch and a successful launch more than we want it to launch right now. Um, so we're kind of just waiting to hear what the next update is. I don't think we have a reason yet for the hold, although we are waiting to get that information. We just know that the team is, yeah. So what we've heard, the team is still doing a few final checkouts. All systems look good. I guess they're just taking a few extra minutes just to make sure that the vehicle is happy. And it looks like we are counting again. We are counting again. 25 seconds.
It was another fake out. It was another fake out.
Oh my god.
I think SpaceX is, I don't know if they're like trolling us today or what's going on.
This is, I've never
seen a countdown release and then hold again so quickly.
No, this is like, it kind of makes me wonder if there's some kind of like an automated issue or something that they're trying to clear, and they release it and it says no, and then they release it and it says no.
Yeah. Now there's definitely an automated system that keeps throwing a code somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, just to clear the codes and try it again. But we are, this is brutal. I can only imagine for our amazing team out there at Starbase. We, don't just have Joaquin. We have a whole mess of folks out there with a lot of different cameras bringing who are going to get some incredible views. But this must just be, I mean, this is like destroying my nerves here, and I'm just watching on the desk. I can only imagine for everyone out there, just like, is it go, is it not, is it go, okay, they released it, now hold again, and then released and hold.
Yeah, and that was something that happened. I mean, I mentioned being down there for Flight 9 almost exactly a year ago. They went into that T-minus 40-second hold, and we had the SpaceX stream pulled up on a computer there at the site we were viewing it from, but there was such a huge delay that by the time they released that hold, the deluge was already like shooting the water up and the rocket was off the pad. So we were sitting there watching the stream waiting for the delay to release, or waiting for the hold to release, and then all of a sudden the rocket's in the air, and we were completely caught off guard by it. So hopefully these guys are kind of staying on their toes and watching the rocket so it doesn't take off without them noticing.
Yep, and we are very much doing the same. I've been in my in a similar place out at Vandenberg where the what's the countdown doing? I can specifically remember NROL 91 Delta 4 Heavy had a couple little adjustments to the timeline, and the streams are always delayed, and it's just kind of one of the things you learn is you got to stay on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
While we have a moment here, I'm noticing some interesting white-colored and maybe even metallic tiles up there on the nose of Starship. That's not something I think we've seen before.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a new thing. They've got a lot more of those metallic tiles on the ship today. I know that for sure. It looks like they were in very specific areas along kind of like the side, like right at the edges of the heat shield all the way up to the nose is where I saw those at.
Yeah, I would imagine those ones along the sides are going to be should bring some really good data when they do those turns, because at that point the heating isn't just going to necessarily be flat on to the belly.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to be doing a more aggressive entry profile this time. Wow, awesome!
Really cool engine shot. Yeah,
engine shot. This was the shot I was.
Oh, we got inside
before.
the hot stage ring right there. Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, that is such a cool view, and look how frosty it all is.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that view during staging.
Mm-hmm. No, it's going to be really cool to see.
Like we said before, SpaceX has I think in this total vehicle, over 50 cameras. And they are certainly, even with just this vehicle here on the ground, they are delivering with these new, really incredible views. I just want to get to see these views in flight. It's at least they've actually they seem to have settled down a little bit and aren't just trying to release the hold every 2 seconds. again, with just 40 seconds on the clock left, this hold could release at any time.
Hmm.
We have to stay aware. We have to stay on our toes because when that does release, it is going to be off the pad in the blink of an eye.
And
It
we
is.
do have quite a bit more time left in the launch. I think we've got another 25 minutes left in the
Yeah.
launch window until it closes. So um, there is time for SpaceX to do what they need to do. I'm not sure what the hold is for, whether it's for weather or if it's something in the vehicle side. But like weather looks phenomenal. I mean, there's a couple little clouds there in the air, but we know rockets can go through clouds, no problem, as we saw with Falcon Heavy. So hopefully we will see them sort through it with whatever issue is going on and get this countdown released.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We are hoping to see them clear the whatever the hold is. As a reminder, they can hold for a considerable amount of time at 40 seconds. My understanding, and my numbers could be a little bit off, but my understanding is that okay. So we just got an update. They are currently looking at fuel temperature. Don't know if that's the methane on the booster or the ship. But they are assessing a possible.
It's rolling.
Out-of-family.
Don't get your hopes up yet. But the countdown clock is rolling again.
They can't do this to me again.
We have cleared. We're back. It's hold again. Yeah. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Considering that they said that there's a fuel temperature that they're looking at, it could be that there is a sensor reporting a out of family high or low fuel temperature, which basically means that you have an expected range of temperatures where you expect that fuel to be, and if it's too high or too low, it can automatically flag it and say, hey, this isn't right. We actually saw this with SLS with the battery temperature, where one of the holdups was, hey, we're seeing a high battery temperature. All of these fuel sensors, everything has multiple sensors. So what they're going to do is they are going to be looking at other sensors in similar and different locations and saying, okay, do we think there's an actual issue with the fuel temperature? Do we think that it is maybe too warm or too cold? Or are we seeing, just this one sensor acting weird, in which case you can start to look at how is it acting, what is it doing? Sometimes like with SLS, where it was reporting the maximum temperature that sensor could say that it could report, they were able to say, uh-oh, and the timeline has disappeared. Well, that's not a good sign. And it's over. There it is. We have official confirmation. Unfortunately, they have scrubbed the launch attempt for today. Well, better safe than sorry. This is, Austin, the magician who runs our stream in the back end, kind of has just said that, this was kind of like an advanced wet dress rehearsal. At the very least, this is good data for the team. They hopefully will be able to, I believe there's a launch attempt possibility tomorrow. Yeah, we will wait to hear what the next launch attempt is. There is a possible window tomorrow, but we will just see if they are able to hit that. As always, thank you guys for coming out and supporting us. We will, follow us on X, on Instagram. We will keep you guys up to date on what the next launch opportunity will be. And if you don't have enough rockets in your life, well, in just a little under 10 hours, there is going to be an Electron launching from New Zealand. So stay tuned. We should be bringing some form of coverage for that, hopefully. Until then, thank you guys for coming out and supporting. Thanks for watching. And I am looking forward to doing this all again in the next few days. Absolutely, absolutely. Until then, again, we thank you guys for coming out, and we hope to see you all here next time for what we will hope to be a successful launch of Starship with a lot less, shall we say, terminal count shenanigans. Yeah, absolutely. That was, yeah, yeah. I've never quite seen that before, and I'm kind of hoping that I don't again. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all again. Stay tuned to social media, and we will do our best to keep you guys in the loop.